What's up everyone, this is FP Sticks. In today's video, I'm going to be bringing you all another episode of my Legendary Battle Strategy series, where we take a look at a couple of my battles and go really in depth into the mechanics of what is taking place. And in today's video, I'm only showcasing battles where, in theory, on paper, I should easily win this game. But because of a big misplay on my part, or really solid plays from my opponent, I end up throwing the game and losing the game when based on team comp I should easily win that. So we're gonna jump into these matches and kind of break down what mistakes I made, what I could have done differently, and most likely these are some of the mistakes that you might be experiencing in your own battles as well. So hopefully through this video we can all learn together and improve our gameplay. So let's jump right into this. So the team that I'm going to be using throughout the duration of the battles in this video is the typical team that I enjoy running in Great League. It is the G-Fisk Pelipper Venusaur team. These battles were done in the Great League. And so let's jump into these battles and kind of talk through what's going on here. Stunfisk into Skarmory. This is the dream lead. This is the dream lead. All you need to do is maintain positive alignment and everything should work out just fine. Pelipper is somewhat neutral against Skarmory. In the 2 shield it can hang a little bit, but Venusaur is absolutely terrible. So alignment in this battle is everything. My opponent immediately switches to Medicham. I have an immediate response to this with Pelipper as well. I know that they are 1 counter ahead, but because of this stutter lag in the game, I completely lose track of how much energy my opponent is at. I know it takes 8 counters to get to a Psychic, and it takes 6 counters to get to an Ice Punch. I even sneak an extra Wing Attack in here. If this is a Psychic, it's definitely worth the shield, so I will shield this up. I do end up getting baited with Ice Punch. So I'm farming here, and at this point in time, I'm thinking that there's still 1 or 2 counters off from the Psychic, but once again, because of that stutter lag in the middle of the matchup, I am incorrect in the amount of energy that my opponent has. So right here, this is essentially the decision that affects the outcome of the match. Even if this is an Ice Punch, it's worth a shield here, even if it's an Ice Punch, because I would most likely be able to Wing Attack down this Medicham before it can even get to another move. And when you have such a dominant matchup with G-Fisk against Skarmory, it's okay if you are down shields as long as you maintain that alignment. But here, I'm thinking it's just an Ice Punch, I can barely tank this and then maybe farm down. Unfortunately, it was the Psychic, and I'm just not able to get enough Wing Attack damage to take out that Medicham, as you can see, which is very unfortunate because now I know my Venusaur is going to be stuck in an unfavorable matchup. So whenever you encounter mutual stutter lag like that, it's best to just err on the side of caution, because I know that G-Fisk in the Skarmory is so dominant. There's no reason for me to not shield that, even if it was an Ice Punch. And unfortunately, out comes Vigoroth here, and at this point I know that the game is over because I did not maintain my alignment. It doesn't even matter that we have equal shields here, because the Venusaur is going to have no play against the Skarmory. So as I fast forward this battle and let it play out, I'm trying to take out this Vigoroth to at least get a little bit of chip damage on the Skarmory, but no way, it takes me out, and then I concede the match there because I knew that I was going to lose that game. So when you have such a solid, hard lead like that, you gotta maintain alignment no matter what, and that would have been a very straightforward game. Venusaur can hang with Vigoroth, Pelipper easily beats Medicham if I shield correctly, and G-Fisk absolutely stomps on Skarmory. So in this next battle, the Stunfisk into Deoxys. This is a relatively neutral matchup across the board. Typically opponents are just going to continue to farm because they know that the energy from Deoxys doesn't have a whole lot of places to go onto the G-Fisk because of the resisted damage. So when they do stay in like this, I typically sometimes go for a Rock Slide bait just to kind of see how they're going to shield here. but they are still staying in, so I'm just going to go for this Earthquake. People that lead Deoxys are weak to dark types in the lead, so there is a possibility that there's an Azumarill in the back. Judging by my back line, I know that is pretty favorable for me if there is an Azumarill in the back. Sometimes there's also a Charmer in the back, like an Alola Ninetales. So they rip off a Psycho Boost and then they swap. I know that they still have a lot of energy, and out comes Hitmonchan. So we've seen 2 counter users already. I know that this Hitmonchan does have access to Thunder Punch, so I absolutely need to shield, but I get baited with Power Up Punch, really bad for me. It takes 5 counters to get to the Power Up Punch, and I'm assuming that my Pelipper does win CMP here, but I'm just going to throw this Weather Ball. I know that the Deoxys still has energy stored. Definitely enough for a Psycho Boost, and potentially even enough for a Thunderbolt. So I'm just going to throw another Weather Ball here and take out the Hitmonchan. I'm up in shields. It is a Bastiodon in the back, and this is very unfortunate because my opponent is getting a lot of farm. They still have the Deoxys that has a lot of energy remaining, so that is very threatening to my Venusaur as well. My switch clock is barely not up, as you can see. There's still a couple of seconds left on my switch clock, and so at this point in time, I have to make a very difficult decision right here on whether or not do I preserve this Pelipper with this sliver of health, or do I just let it go down and then try to get alignment on something? Because I'm not going to get to a Weather Ball here. I'm going to get farmed down, but that's also so low of health range that I could potentially be countered down by the Deoxys. So unfortunately, I do let it go down. And here I'm thinking, this is very unfortunate because this Bastiodon has a lot of loaded energy. I'm definitely in Flamethrower range on my G-Fisk. I know that 1 Psycho Boost will not KO my Venusaur, but I believe the Deoxys has like 8 counters worth of energy, so they're 2 counters away from back to back. If I shield the Flamethrower on my G-Fisk, they might go for a combo play and rip off a Psycho Boost and put me extremely low. And so these are the things that are going through my head as this game is playing out. I do end up bringing out the G-Fisk, and you can see I'm so low, Psycho Boost would still not take me out. But at this point in time, I stupidly do not shield this Flamethrower because I'm too concerned about getting sniped by that Deoxys. But in hindsight, all I need to do there is shield the Flamethrower. If my opponent swaps Deoxys there, I know that they might even go for a counter down, because as you can see, based on the energy that I had on my G-Fisk here, I am not at an Earthquake. I'm not even at a Rock Slide, so I wouldn't have enough energy to threaten the Deoxys. They potentially would have been able to counter me down before I can get to a move, and then I for sure lose because they can essentially triple Psycho Boost my Venusaur. But I still should have committed the shield here, because Venusaur, even up a shield, is going to struggle against this Bastiodon here. It's going to take 2 Frenzy Plants to take it out, which is 12 turns, and Bastiodon is going to take 7 Smackdowns to get there. I'm trying to not let any free Smackdowns through. I'm going to throw a Frenzy Plant here. But I also somehow need enough loaded energy to get a Frenzy Plant off in the Deoxys, and my opponent just has too much energy stored all over the place. They're able to get to a move here. Flamethrower would almost be enough to take me out. They have a Psycho Boost stored, so at this point I knew the game was over, because here's the combo play. They knew I didn't have a move stored. Very nice recognition on their part. Their Deoxys was almost in Rock Slide range. Potentially that would have been Rock Slide range. But once again, the counter damage on my G-Fisk would have been too devastating there. So really nice play by my opponent. Unfortunately, the Bastiodon in the back really threw me for a loop, but in hindsight, should have just shielded and kept my G-Fisk alive. Stunfisk into Bastiodon, another unbelievably hard counter favorable lead for me. Out comes a Pelipper safe swap. My team does not have a direct response to this Pelipper safe swap. I know that my G-Fisk and the Pelipper get to the moves at the exact same time, and Pelipper wins CMP. So I'm going to throw a Rock Slide here, and eventually I want to make a move into my own Pelipper. So I make a move into my Pelipper right there. This is not a smart decision. Pelipper has a 5 wing attack energy head start on me. So in hindsight, this shield advantage that I have right here is not that beneficial based on the energy advantage that my opponent has. Because as you're going to see here, If my opponent is fancy with their baits and correctly baits me twice, this still is a losing matchup for me because they're 5 wing attacks ahead. So I shield the Weather Ball and I get baited. Feels really bad. I'm trying to go for this Hurricane here, but this will be a CMP tie, so we're going to see who wins this. I lose the CMP tie here. So here's my thought process. If I get baited a second time, that really sucks. I don't want to get baited a second time. If they land the Hurricane on me, that's also very unfortunate. So I have to make a call here. But one of the problems, like even if I shield up a Hurricane correctly here, they will let the Pelipper go. They'll maintain their shield advantage. They'll farm my Pelipper all the way down. And with their shield advantage, potentially whatever Pokemon they have in the back can sweep my Venusaur. So even though I will maintain positive alignment, a shield deficit with a Venusaur in the back, especially if they have like a Medicham or something like that, can easily take out my Venusaur. So I have to make a tough call here and decide whether or not they're going to bait me. I end up no shielding, and it ends up being the Hurricane, which is absolutely terrible for me. I know that my Venusaur will at least get to a Frenzy Plant before this Pelipper gets to another Hurricane, but most likely they probably have a good response to a G-Fisk in the back. Pelipper is their flexible option, so I was anticipating that it could possibly be a Medicham in the back. I didn't want to get hit by a Weather Ball on my G-Fisk, so that's why I ended up going Venusaur here. But they are really chipping me down. I even lag a little bit there, and they get in an extra wing attack, which is not great. But this Frenzy will be able to take out the Pelipper. They still have a shield, and what is in the back, we won't see quite yet, because most likely the Bastiodon is going to come out. It's a full health Bastiodon, and there's just absolutely no way that I can take this thing out. So I'm going to store a move. And then, unfortunately, in the back is Meganium. This is just a straight-up losing matchup for G-Fisk because I can only go for the Rock Slides here. So, on paper, I should never lose this game, right? G-Fisk into Bastiodon, hard counter. Venusaur on Meganium, hard counter. But my opponent played very well on their safe swap with the Pelipper. What I needed to do instead, and fun fact, I think this opponent actually appears later on in the video as well. So I had multiple chances to play against this opponent, but I kept making mistakes against the Pelipper safe swap. I need to chip it with a Rock Slide, and either get that shield and take some damage, but before I make the mirror swap into my own Pelipper, because otherwise if I lose switch advantage like this, it just ends up being extremely terrible for me, and my opponent takes this game. Very well played by them. Alright, here's another match, and this is actually against the exact same opponent, which is hilarious, because I'm featuring this battle in the video as well. Bastiodon lead, very favorable for me. Here comes Pelipper. Alright, I even talked myself through this before I played this game. I'm like, don't make the same mistake. Don't make the same mistake. So at this point in time, I'm over farming this time. I'm going to throw the Rock Slide. And I have 2 Rock Slides stored here. Going to throw another Rock Slide. They have still not even thrown a move yet. But they have 10 wing attacks of energy. They have back-to-back Weather Balls or a Hurricane stored right here. So I'm going to get hit by some... No, I'm not. I'm going to make the same exact mistake that I made the first time. This time around, I was attempting to catch a Weather Ball because I knew they were at like 12 or 13 wing attacks, so they're almost capped at 100 energy. It was very likely that they were going to rip off a Weather Ball at that point in time. So I was trying to catch a Weather Ball, but once again, the safe play there is to get hit by some energy before I make this swap here. So I made the same exact mistake. Even though I landed a Rock Slide successfully, I'm up a shield, they are 13 wing attacks ahead on energy. I do successfully call their bait here, which is good for me. Now there is no reason not to shield this move right here, even if it's a bait, it's still worth it. But what do? I no shield. Once again, I don't understand why I did this, and sometimes you really just overthink things and then you end up throwing the game like this. because they went for the Hurricane. I knew they had enough energy for the Hurricane, but for some reason I thought they were going to bait again. Even if it was a bait, it was worth the shield because we already know what's in the back. It's the Meganium. So even though I have a shield advantage this time, which is better than the previous match, I don't have favorable alignment. So this is not looking good for me at all. I know there's a Bastiodon, full health Bastiodon, and I know that they still have a Meganium. This is just going to be some Weather Ball chip damage, but it's going to put me in a health range where I really can't hang with the Bastiodon anymore. So they bring out the Bastiodon. This plays out a little bit. I chip it with some Frenzy Plants, but Bastiodon is an absolute monster. I have to land 3 Frenzy Plants. I swap to my G-Fisk here, even up a shield. This is not good for me at all. This Meganium can go straight Frenzy Plant, and that's exactly what they're doing. I'm chipping it with Rock Slides. It doesn't even matter. They shield that. I shield up their Frenzy, and then they swap into the Bastiodon right when I swap to Venusaur, and I'm barely not able to get to that Frenzy Plant, and then they have enough energy to Flamethrower my G-Fisk. Great plays by my opponent. Once again, terrible plays by me. But the thing that my opponent did that put me such in a tough spot there is they did not throw any energy with Pelipper. They knew that I was eventually going to get out of that matchup, and by holding on to all that energy, it gave them a huge advantage in the secondary matchup despite being down a shield. So very well played to my opponent. G-Fisk into Alolan Marowak. So this is a matchup that I have to stay in and play out because Venusaur is weak to AWAC in the back. Out comes Vigoroth. Why am I still staying in this matchup? I'm way too slow to decide what I want to switch into. Here's the problem. If I switch into Pelipper, this Vigoroth already has a 3 counter head start lead, so it can potentially flip the matchup. If I switch into Venusaur, same issue. This Vigoroth has an energy advantage and can flip the matchup. So instead what I end up doing, and this is a terrible mistake, I know that I need to somehow maintain alignment, but also keep my Pelipper for the Alolan Marowak. Because if the Alolan Marowak sets itself up in some sort of farm down situation and I'm in a shield deficit, my Pelipper is really going to struggle here. So I stupidly stay in, and I'm just going to throw a Rock Slide to chip this, and then I can safely make a move into another Pokemon. Pelipper gets to the moves in 5 wing attacks. I'm still staying in here. I'm still staying in here, and this is just extremely unfortunate. I did not make the move into Venusaur there because they still had an energy advantage. So at this point, I was too slow to decide what I wanted to go into in the beginning. Now I'm thinking, can I even win this matchup? Can I take out this Vigoroth and try to maintain positive alignment? So I'm just trying to throw another Rock Slide here. This is most likely a bait, but I have to shield it. And they go for the Body Slam bait. That's absolutely terrible for me. I'm down a shield. Gonna throw this Rock Slide, and most likely my opponent doesn't even shield this because they know that they live. Luckily I do get a shield. Now I can make my move into Venusaur. But man, that was a very rough start to the game for me because I don't have an immediate response to Vigoroth. What I should have done based on the lead that we saw there with the Alolan Marowak, just go into the Venusaur anyways. Even if I lose that matchup, I at least avoid the Venusaur AWAC matchup, which is extremely bad for Venusaur. So I'm going to throw this Frenzy, down goes the Vigoroth, but guess what? This is my worst nightmare. I've set up the Alolan Marowak for a farm down against my Venusaur, and now the Pelipper is really going to struggle against this thing. I have no energy on my Pelipper. This Alolan Marowak is easily going to have a Shadow Bone stored coming out of this. The Frenzy Plant damage is nice because it potentially puts it in Rock Slide range. It's for sure in Weather Ball range. But at this point, they led AWAC, so they're weak to water types and dark types. I'm assuming that there can be an Azumarill in the back, which means that Pelipper has to do double duty here. So in hindsight, I maybe should have brought in the G-Fisk, anticipating that there's an Azu in the back. But let's see what they end up having in the back. My defense fell as well, which is absolutely terrible. I throw the Weather Ball in the middle of the fire spin animation so my opponent cannot switch out. And let's see what they end up having in the back. They actually shield that. So I switch into my G-Fisk to absorb this damage, and I'm really hoping that my Pelipper is going to have play against what they have in the back. It was just a Bone Club? And it's actually a Shiftry in the back. There's still potential here. Shiftry wins CMP against all my Pokemon. But I'm just going to throw the Rock Slide here. This will do about half health. I need to get to another Rock Slide. But I know that this Shiftry is not going to let me get here. Even if I shield right here, it does not matter, because Shiftry will get to another Leaf Blade and win CMP, so it's a wasted shield. I save it for the Pelipper. All I need to do is get rid of this Shiftry. But I also want a little bit of residual energy to threaten the AWAC in the back, because I knew that they overfarmed. They only threw a Bone Club, so they still had some residual energy. I need to land a Weather Ball on the Shiftry and also have a little bit of energy for the AWAC. So right here, I stupidly over-tap. I knew that the Shiftry was going to be at a move here, and I even knew that I lost CMP. But I, in my head, was hoping that I could maybe have just a little bit of energy stored, but unfortunately, over-tap, Shiftry wins the CMP. Even with a super clunky lead scenario, there was still a win condition for me at the end there. I just needed to throw the Weather Ball immediately, and then just hope that the AWAC didn't get to a Shadow Bone, but the lead matchup was extremely clunky. So hopefully you can all see from this video, when you have very solid alignment with your lead, maintaining switch advantage is everything. I fumbled so many games here just by sloppy play in the secondary matchup, and these are common problems that I see in a lot of my students as well. So just be aware of that. It's tough to decide sometimes when you need to chip with the lead versus when you need to immediately swap, but my opponents played extremely well and won a bunch of those games where in theory I should have won them. But thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you appreciate this content, and I'll see you all in the next video.